Hello and welcome to the live preview show here on the Debt Network. My name is Sam, and as always, I'm joined after a snazzy new intro by a Lincoln City fan, Mr. Callum. How are we, Callum?
Hello, how are we? I'm not too bad. How are you?
Yes, all good, thank you. You survived your weekly Twitter rants about every single fan base in League One.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll come on to them because they've touched a nerve with some people, but I can back up what I said. I wouldn't say them.
Okay. I'm sure they'll be in the comment section again after today. But we've got a corking match week ahead this week with, I think, 6 or 7 games that tickle our fancy this week. But as always, the first bit of admin is our Predictions League. If you're new around here, the loser has to buy the shirt of the opposing supported club. So I would have to buy a Lincoln and Callum would have to buy an Orient. And then maybe, if we're feeling generous, because we probably won't want each other's shirt, we will give it away to one lucky fan of said club. So you get 3 points for a correct score and 1 point for a correct outcome. In total, last week I got 7 points and Callum, you got 4. So the gap, the points difference now is I've got 177 points and you are on 187 points. So Callum still leads by 10 points, which is making him very happy. But we've got we've got a big game week this week, and also we've got a full action-packed schedule next Tuesday as well. So
I'm not sure how many more match weeks there are, because some teams have got 15, some teams have got 13. So, but we're getting down to where it really matters now.
Yes, we are. The crunch time of the season, so our games are obviously picked based on performances in the league now. So we apologise if your team is in mid-table, i.e. Wigan Athletic. So starting with Wigan, actually, rather conveniently, they beat Huddersfield in midweek. 2 defeats in a row for Huddersfield now, and their gap that they had to 7th place has very quickly shrunk. The gap now between 5th and 9th place is just the 5 points. We know they've had a plethora of injuries at Huddersfield Town. I know you've mentioned a couple of times about Joe Taylor and the rushness they actually brought him back into the squad after playing very little football for 6 months. So Huddersfield Town, are they in danger now of actually missing out on the playoffs altogether?
I don't know. It's one of them that, even given their dodgy form, I think we can sort of safely say it's a battle between Huddersfield, Leyton Orient, Charlton and Bolton. Out of those 4, 3 weeks ago, I'd have probably switched Huddersfield and Stockport and said it was a battle between Stockport, Leyton Orient, Charlton and Bolton. But in this, my worry with Huddersfield is that they're just going to kind of resort to what I said a couple of weeks ago, is that they just they don't want to fight for it. I don't watch them week in and week out because I'm busy and I'm watching other teams and whatnot. But I worry whether they just don't want to get over the line, whether they just know they'll get over the line instead of wanting to fight to get over the line. And that gap is it's less than a win. We could be talking in a week's time with them out of the playoffs. So, and that is a possibility. For them, I think it's still in their hands. Well, it's definitely in their hands. I mean, I think it's in all of their hands because most of them have still got to play each other. But they've got to be careful. They've got to really be careful, else they're going to be in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, obviously injuries haven't helped, but scoring only 18 home goals, which is actually the worst in the top 13 in the table, is one of where the problems are. Even Barnsley have scored more home goals and they've only won 4 home games all season. We're going to come back to Orient versus Birmingham because I need a bit of a rant. I've got 2 rants lined up today, which is very unlike me at the moment. We've got 10-man Barnsley. They got a win away at Northampton to make it 2 in a row. They seem to be extremely inconsistent at the moment, Barnsley. They win 4, then they lose 6, or don't win in 6, and they win a couple. So they're just hanging on to the playoff places, 4 points off, same games as Orient, but 1 more than Charlton, Bolton and Reading. We obviously had the big news of Reading's exclusivity agreement as well, which we couldn't be more delighted for the fans of Reading. Yeah. Hopefully this works and the owner isn't a complete moron. I think everyone in the football world can, other than probably Wycombe fans, will probably vouch that and hope that this owner is not a moron.
We've been here before with Reading though. I think there's been a couple of exclusivity agreements off the top of my head, so I just worry about whether that it's actually going to get over the line. It's one thing to have exclusivity; it's another thing to purchase the football club altogether. So we'll wait with bated breath on that one, and on Barnsley. Of course, they'd come into form just as they're about to play Lincoln City. Of course,
it's always the way, isn't it? Speaking of people not in form, referees.
That's a tenuous.
Now, this is a completely split decision between. I've seen Birmingham fans say that it's not a red card. I've seen Orient fans that say it's not a red card. Well, that's probably a bit more not biased, but at the time, I've seen it back about 100 times. At the time, I thought it was no. Personally, I don't think it is. But in the modern day, unfortunately, I can see why it's a red card. However, there is a foul first. Curry gets pulled back, which is why he's had to lunge. That's a foul. I think it was their first goal. That's a foul. The second goal is beautiful. No problems with the second goal. It's a really good ball through, and Ethan Laird's done a really good finish. But why in God's name? You've got the two most informed teams in League One. It's a big match. The referee hadn't refereed a game for 3 weeks, first of all. Why are we putting someone who they obviously don't trust in charge of a game like that, first of all? Second of all, that referee sent off Sonny Bradley in Wycombe versus Cambridge for violent conduct from an elbow. I've seen that video back. He didn't do that. Funnily enough, that card was rescinded. The referee for Leyton Orient versus Charlton this weekend, he sent off Ashley Fletcher earlier in the season. Guess what that was? It was also rescinded. Why are we putting referees who are clearly inadequate at their job? And the one thing that bugs me, referees, do a red card. It's contentious. There's a couple of contentious decisions. Do a press conference after the game. You are human beings, and I will respect you more if you come out after the game and say, I gave a red card because I saw this. I will respect you a lot more. And I think fans will respect them a lot more. However, they don't do that. The FA cover up a lot of dodgy decisions. We see that at the top level. The problem is, obviously, people don't want to become referees because they are abused.
Yeah.
Rightly or wrongly, they are heavily abused and heavily criticised. But if I underperformed at my job as much as they do, week in, week out, I would be sacked. There's no be-all, end-all about that.
The thing with referees that get me, and it's not referees themselves. I have to caveat this. The thing that gets me is not being able to admit when you're wrong. There was an incident with Lincoln City the other week. I think is it Joe Gardner, the poor bloke who 4 minutes into his debut coming off on the bench was then sent off, and it kind for me that incident was everything that was wrong with it. Was wrong with the current state of football. Is you've got referee who, because referees have been hammered, I have to watch my language, hammered so much in recent years that, you've got a whole bench of Cambridge staff running at you saying, it's a red card, it's a red card. That the referee feels like he's got no choice but to send him off, right?
Yeah.
And that because their confidence is so low, right? And then the FA, to try and give the referees more confidence, are backing them up off the pitch and just saying, no, that was the right decision. And for that instance, they didn't rescind the red card. They said, no, actually, it was a right decision. Good evening, Kieran. It was just one of them that it just didn't sit right with me that the referee made a decision based, from what most people could see, based on the bench's reaction, and then didn't admit fault. And that's where it sits with me at the minute. Is there's got to be accountability, and that's kind of why I like the idea of referees, at least their post-match report being made public. A section where us in the media can look at their post-match report, 24 hours after the game and say, this referee justified his decision in this was his thinking. If you make that public, football isn't a private game. Football's the people's game, isn't it?
Hmm.
So hiding these decisions sits wrong with me in all sorts of, I don't think referees should be made to come out and do press conferences. I think that's a step too far. But make that report that they have to, we know they submit it, make that report public. It would make everything so much easier.
No, I do agree. Like, make something public, make them more humanized. If like at the moment we're treating
Make a
them as,
referee human. They're not. It's not AI. They're not robots. The laws of the game are written to be interpreted by a human, right?
Yeah.
They're not. Football in its very nature, as much as we like to think, is not black and white. It really, really isn't. No matter what we say it is. So, allow a referee to be viewed as a human. Put more of these videos of ref mic'd up that I saw that was posted up for the Lincoln game the other week. Do more of that sort of stuff because that makes you feel like a human. All the comments I've seen about that was, okay, the referee's decision might have been wrong, but you can hear his thought process. And even if his thought process is wrong, take it back to maths, right? If someone gets the wrong answer in maths, the teacher might be like, that's the wrong answer, but explain to me how you got there. That's what we need more. Take it back to that level in football, because at the end of the day, that's what we need as fans. We need to be able to understand it. At the minute, we can't.
100%. Yeah, a 50-50 red card in the modern game. Yeah, it probably nowadays football, because footballs are played a bit like netball, and I've said that a bit before. It's much more non-contacty. The one thing that confused me with that decision was the linesman didn't flag at all, and he flagged for a throw-in. But that. I don't suspect we'll appeal it now, because we're now on Thursday as of this going out, and we haven't heard anything about that being appealed. And I'm glad you mentioned football being a people's game, because I'm on to rant number 2.
Oh dear, we should mention that for people listening post recording, this is a live episode, so we might mention some live comments that go out, like Simon saying 50-50 a red card in the modern game gives the ref a decision to make. And I want to know why he made that decision. And I think having a post-match chat or whatever it is the best thing, the best course of action. Over to Sam for rant number 2 then.
Being the people's game. This Sky TV deal and the EFL, I've got to choose my language very carefully. They can all sod off, quite frankly. The only benefit, I'm going to use Orient here as an example. It's happened to many clubs this season, but I'm going to use my club because it happened today and it royally screwed me over and annoyed me. We were due to play Stevenage on the 1st of April. That has been moved from 3 o'clock on a Saturday to 8 o'clock on a Thursday. A Thursday night. Who in their right mind is going to want to watch Leyton Orient versus Stevenage as a neutral? Do they not realise Stevenage have scored 9 away goals this season? The previous encounter this season was 0-0. The other encounter we've had this season was a 1-0 win to Stevenage. There's not going to be any entertainment in that game. Stevenage is the most anti-football team I've ever watched. But now they've screwed out. We've had 11 of 23 home games at 3 o'clock on a Saturday. And that could still happen and still be moved. Wycombe, I think, is a prime example. Our last home game of the season, that could be moved. Quite frankly, this EFL and Sky deal, it's all because they want the 3 p.m. blackout to just disappear. Didn't say Sky they would announce them months in advance. Again, just screwing over the fans. I believe they did, Connor, yes. But I believe they said as well, when you get to March, they're going to do it on a month-by-month basis based on teams' performances, so they pick the better games, so to speak. They've screwed over fans. Like, I'm a season ticket holder. I don't live local to the game, so at ground I can't get there in 45 minutes, half an hour like most people can. It takes me it's probably an hour and a half, 2 hour round trip. So for that game I probably now can't go. It's not even 7:45, so I can get back probably about 11:30. It's now 8 o'clock, so that completely ruins. I can't go now. Unless I stay somewhere overnight, I can't go. So that's another game on my season card that I can't go, which I think totals up that I have actually spent more money buying a season card this year because I've missed so many games and so many games have been moved. They are royally messing up the fan who can't work for work arrangements, for example, and they're just fisting fans up the backside, quite frankly, with this deal. And I know they go, it gives more money to the club, and because of you probably get more from TV and stuff like that. But football like you said, Callum, it's the people's game. Football was made by fans going to games, getting in stadiums, filling it out. And players don't want to be playing in empty stadiums. No player wants to play in empty stadiums. Every player in the world wants to play in a full stadium with an atmosphere. But I can't believe they've moved it to a Thursday night. Maybe a Friday night, that's acceptable, because a Friday night under the lights is sometimes quite a special atmosphere. Yeah. But on a Thursday night, people have still got to go to bloody work on the Friday. It's not a bank holiday. Like, it's just, I'm royally peed off.
As someone who works in the media, I can kind of view it both ways. Like, I am sympathetic to Sky. Like, they need to make a decision, right, as to what games they can sell their product as. Where I disagree with this was, one, it was just too late of a decision, right? It was far too late in the thought process to make this. What's changed in the last month that made them think recently that this was a game? You know, even if the decision was made a month ago, announce it a month ago, right?
Yeah.
What I'm sort of confused about is, why this game? Like
I know why.
Move. I mean, I know Birmingham against Wycombe's on their Sky Sports Plus thing. Play that. Put that on TV tonight. I'd like. No offense, League Two. I'm not a huge fan of Barrow versus Carlisle. I know it's something of a North derby or whatnot, but I want to watch Birmingham versus Wycombe. Put that on a Friday night, because that's the top two going after it. Leyton Orient against Stevenage. No offense to Leyton Orient, it's just not going to be fun. And I get that, like Connor's saying in the comments, some games that they put on Sky are random. I imagine there's some sort of agreement that all teams have to be on at a certain amount of times, right? And I get that's why it's kind of laid out. But put Stevenage against Birmingham on, or put Stevenage against a relegation side on, a Stevenage against a side that might make the playoffs. I'm not interested. And they'll come out and they'll probably, Mansfield against Rotherham might be a game sometime soon that they put on Sky, if not already. Who's watching that?
Yeah, I believe
I'm very confused.
I believe they have to show every team. I could be wrong. It's around 12 to 15 times a season. Every team, and that includes Sky Sports Plus. And obviously Birmingham on Tuesday, they had the option of having Sky cameras there, but because it was a rearranged game from a Saturday, they had the option to have Sky there, and they said no, which fair enough. I suppose you get more revenue from selling the seats, which they would. So anyway, my rants are now over. I can now breathe.
Shall we move on to actual football and get through some games?
So the first preview game, Callum, your favourite team, Birmingham versus Wycombe. You've been heavily criticised, I think, in the past probably two podcasts me and you have done about Birmingham City, Callum. Why is that?
It's because I have factually, and before Birmingham City fans say otherwise, I was looking at stats the other day. Birmingham have spent, I think it's £4 million more in wages, or are on track to spend £4 million more in wages this year than any other side. I have heavily implied that they have bought the league, which I stand by. Yeah,
one play of that every time.
How many times will that be said?
For the rest of the season, I'm putting that in there. So,
gosh,
there you go, Callum. They had to get it in. There's plenty more where that came from.
Is this to stop me talking about Birmingham spending loads of money?
I didn't realise the comments are in there as well.
That's perfect. To be fair, I didn't know that was a thing. But you might want to add to some of those comments, because it's not going to stop for the next. It's not going to stop for the next 50. It's like every conversation that people have about Manchester City these days always comes with the asterisk of the 115 charges.
Yeah.
Every Birmingham City conversation should come with that asterisk.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, especially for you. So poor old Callum. That there's still we've still got 2 more of them to come as well. If you actually mention what is on them cards as well. Simon saying, under no circumstances should a weekend game be played on a Thursday. It screws fans as often as the last trains has got. Yep, totally agree with that. Fans can always get off on time. Yep, totally agree with that. Couldn't have put that
Mark.
better myself. Mark, cheers, Mark. Yep. There you go. There's one
what I
Birmingham
will
fan.
imply, what I will say, Mark, is if another team is having success, are you not jealous of them anyway? Like that's what sport is.
Hmm.
Like, you know, if you're a Birmingham fan, surely you're jealous of Aston Villa playing in the Champions League.
Oh, that one. That's gonna hit home. That one.
That's all I'll say is surely you're jealous of your rivals doing better than you. Surely historically they've always been successful, but I'll drop that one in for thought.
The only thing Birmingham have over them, because they're going to get one at the end of the season, maybe get 2. They get 2 trophies, a League One title and a Wembley visit. So
we'll see.
Yeah, moving on to the actual game, Birmingham versus Wycombe. Birmingham haven't lost any of their 16 home league games this season, and have only conceded the 7 goals. And if they keep up their current points per game, they get 108 points, which is the record set by Wolves in 2014.
It's very impressive. It's very impressive. I'm not saying Birmingham aren't a good side, and they have been. When they played Lincoln earlier this season, they're a championship level team. And I've never shied away from the conversation that Birmingham aren't a very good side. They are. That you can't shy away from that at all. And as much as we like to hark on about it, they're a good side. They're a good footballing side. I remember Iwata. He's one of the best midfielders I've seen in League One history. But we'll focus on the game rather than just one of the sides in it, because Wycombe are also doing incredibly well this year. If you take out, it's part of the game, isn't it? But if you can always say, if you take out the 3 sides that came down, Wycombe would be walking the league, to be honest. They'd be up there with Wrexham. Sure, it'd be a bit of a title scrap, but everyone would be talking about how well Wycombe are doing. And okay, they've had a couple of draws recently, a few draws in the past 5, but they're doing incredibly well. No, that's not the conversation that I have in Birmingham fans, is that you're spending more money than anybody else. So therefore, of course, you're going to attract better players. Play the klaxon. Yes. The conversation I'm having isn't about whether you can spend the money. It's just that you are. So anyway, we'll complete. Do you know what? We're scrapping this conversation. Wycombe are doing great. Obviously, the hopes of winning the league have probably disappeared into the vault of money that the time has. But there you go. But I think this game's going to be. I can kind of see Birmingham, home advantage. Obviously, as Birmingham fans like to point out, they have a lot of fans, especially compared to a side like Wycombe. So that's not me saying Wycombe don't have any fans. It's just obviously Birmingham, a much bigger club historically than Wycombe. So I back. Obviously, I have to back Birmingham in this one. I'll probably go with a 2-0 win for them.
Yeah, I've gone for 2-1. Wycombe actually have the worst away defence in the top 7, but they're top scorers away from home by 9 goals over the next highest. So it should be an enthralling counter. 2-0 Birmingham from Connor, same as you, Callum.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're winning the predictions league, so people should probably look at your predictions rather than mine, which are based. Yours is a bit more, as we've discussed many times, is based more on aura than anything else.
It's one of the few games that I actually want to watch on Sky, if I'm honest. So there you go.
So unfortunately for you, Callum, that klaxon is now gone because we no longer have to talk about Birmingham. Moving on to the second game is Wrexham versus Bolton. Another game at the top end of the league that could prove to be a tasty game. Stephen Schumacher's start as Bolton manager certainly hasn't been boring. One of the most informed teams in the last 6 in the league, with 5 wins in their last 6. Their away record is average, with 7 wins, 2 draws, and 6 losses, and they're outside the playoff places just on goal difference. Wrexham have lost their last 2 league home games and threw away a 2-goal lead in midweek, which prompted Callum to do a tweet about a certain team, Peterborough United. And this is near enough what that tweet said. Poor old Peterborough.
Which I stand by. Anyway, it was a slightly tongue-in-cheek quote, but yeah. I think that, well, we'll get on to Peterborough. They're in a bit of trouble. But
yes.
On Wrexham versus Bolton, like Mark says, we might disagree with some things, Mark, but I agree that Wycombe need a result. Same can apply for Wrexham, really. They're both in the same position. I think the league really has gone for both of them. It's you talk about the league being wrapped up by the end of March. I think it's been wrapped up by the end of February, if I'm honest. Wrexham, a bit like Wycombe recently. Wrexham are a bit more plateau-y, I suppose, but Wrexham up and down with 2 defeats, 3 wins in the last 5. It's all just a bit up and down for them, and they've not got that consistency that you need to be champions, which Birmingham do. So in terms of their game against Bolton, it's a huge one. I'd say more so for Bolton. If I'm Wrexham, I'm going into that game kind of expecting expecting Wycombe to lose in their game. So you can see it as a chance to get 3 points and get level with Wycombe. But for Bolton, they need a win to stay on track with the playoffs. So one of these teams is going to be in a much worse position after the full-time whistle than they are before it, which is why I'd probably go for a draw, if I'm honest. I'd go 2-2.
Say what? Exactly the same as what I've got. Bolton certainly aren't boring under Stephen Schumacher. I still think they'll finish in the top 6, Bolton, while they don't actually have other than Adebayo.
Instead of who? Okay.
Yeah. And I think Charlton finish in there as well instead of Huddersfield. And then I think that's your playoff teams, personally.
There you go.
But obviously, I would love us to get playoffs, but I just can't personally see it happening. But who knows? Moving on to Burton versus Mansfield, which probably 5 weeks ago, I'd probably say we probably weren't going to discuss this as a relegation 6-pointer, but that's the way with football. We'll start off with a major question, though, Callum. Are Mansfield Town in serious danger of going down?
See, I had a conversation with one of my colleagues at work about this, and they are a Mansfield Town fan. And I said, I backed them up. I said, no, you're not in trouble at all, really. You got the gap's too big. There's just too many other teams between you. Now the gap's only 6 points, and I'm now a lot more worried for them. I don't know what it is about that difference from it being 8 points to now 6 points. I think that's the gap that it was last week to this week. I'm a lot more worried about them, and that there is no team in badder form as they are, with the exception of Rotherham in the last 5. But that's only recently. Mansfield Town's form carries on like it's been terrible. And this game to me, it's not a local derby, so to speak. It's a bit further up the A38 for Burton fans to go than it is when they play Derby, but it's an important game for both sides, really. I'm worried. I'm worried for Mansfield. That's why I'm going to go for Burton. I'm back in Burton, and I'll go with a 2-0 win for Burton. Okay.
Yeah, so Burton, if you want some statistics, I've got some for you. Burton have the worst home form per points per game in the league with 0.81, but they are 5th in the form table for the last 6 with 3 wins, 2 draws and 1 loss. That has put them 2 points behind Peterborough United, having played a game more. Gary Bowyer's gone in there, steadied the ship. The emergence of Burrell, who obviously scored 20-odd goals for Cove Rangers last year, along with John Daddy Bodvarsson, it's massively, massively helped. But I'm going to go out on a limb, and this is going to happen. I just had to play it.
We've really pushed out the boat, haven't we?
The klaxons are happening a lot.
Who's been on the sound effects department here?
Nice to hear someone appreciate how good Tomoki Iwata is and a certain Mr. Pake, pronounced Pake, not Pike or Park, produced a 9 out of 10 performance. Yeah, he completely controlled the game on Tuesday. I totally agree. Him and Ethan Laird were standouts. David says, Birmingham CEO said we've got turnover of mid-table Premier League club. That doesn't surprise me with sponsors such as Delta. Stands to sign a 7-year contract, so the fee will be spread across that. We haven't broken FFP. Yeah, totally agree.
I'm not going to get the klaxon out, but I've never...
Turns back.
never accuse them of breaking it. All I'll say is you don't want to have that Stansfield thing over a 7-year contract as a normal thing, right?
No, because like Chelsea.
Chelsea have done that, and see how angry their fans are at the minute. Yeah. So just be careful with that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I've gone for 2-1 to Burton. I think Mantle's dismal form will continue. We've got a comment about Orient Charlton, which we'll get onto after this one. We've got Peterborough versus Shrewsbury, another game that's pivotal, I think, for more Shrewsbury at this moment in time. Their away form is terrible, with 2 wins, 4 draws and 10 losses. Posh's home form, to be fair to them, is okay. 6 wins, 4 draws and 6 losses is their away form that needs a lot of improvement. They'll be a bit more buoyed after the midweek comeback from 2-0 down. A trip to Wembley. Could that trip to Wembley, Callum, could it save their season? If they finish 20th, but they go to Wembley and somehow beat Birmingham City, could it save the season?
You want to ask the question more if they finish 21st and go to Wembley, because that's what they're in trouble of. They're really. I was waiting for that. I was waiting for the klaxon to go. They're in a lot. They're just in a lot of trouble. We're having too much fun, really. They're in a lot of trouble, Peterborough. You know, they've got a win last time out. Okay, great, but they're not a side that's enjoying their football at the minute. You know, I've never seen a Peterborough United admin on Twitter sound so happy that their side has got 3 points. That should be the normal for them. Playing against a Shrewsbury Town side where the flame has really died down there. The flame has well and truly been extinguished there. 3 defeats in a row, okay, against difficult teams and teams that are not really in and around them, although that Stevenage defeat will hurt. I think they've got to be careful of Shrewsbury, but this is kind of the game that they have to win. If to me, if Shrewsbury, this is their season, if I'm honest, if they don't win this game, they're in a lot of trouble, which is why I kind of think they'll win, to be honest. I feel like this is the type of game that Shrewsbury would get up for and Peterborough won't. I'd be intrigued to know Peterborough's record against the bottom. Peterborough's record against the bottom 4. I don't have that to hand, but I kind of it's football for as much of it's a physical and a tactical game. It's also a mental game.
Yeah.
And I back Shrewsbury in that department, so I go 2-1.
Okay, I've gone for a 1-1 draw. If you're interested, Shrewsbury's next load of games, they've got Peterborough away on Saturday, Bristol Rovers at home on Tuesday, Exeter away the following Saturday, Burton at home after that, Reading at home, then Birmingham Wycombe, but they've also got Cambridge to play, Wigan, Northampton and Crawley. So they've got to near enough play everybody around them. So Shrewsbury have, I think, fate in their own hands if they want to stay out. They've just got to win the games where they're playing the teams that are around them. Moving on to my team, Leyton Orient versus Charlton. Orient have obviously got now 2 defeats in a row to after beating Wrexham. So we've had defeats to Bolton, which I felt a bit, not hard done by, but I did. Well, having one fit centre-back for 30 minutes, and then after Tuesday's red card, which I've already discussed at the start. If you want to listen to my rant, go back to the start and have a listen. I believe only Birmingham have played every midweek in the last 4, as much as we have, because we obviously play again next Tuesday, same as Birmingham. We should have our third centre-back fit this weekend in Jack Simpson. We beat Charlton 1-0. Last time they came to our place from an Omar Beckles goal, but lost 2-1 to them earlier this season with, or was it 1-0? I can't remember. I think it was 1-0. Might have been. It was a late goal from Luke Berry, I'm pretty sure anyway. Charlton's away record is 5 wins, 3 draws and 7 defeats, compared to their only 2 defeats at home. So bit of a polar opposite form. They've had 2 defeats in their last 10, with 2 draws and 6 wins in that time. They seem to have had a lot of home games though in that time, because they've won 1 of their last 4 away from home.
I think there was a comment earlier on actually that said this is one of the biggest games of the week, and neither team can afford to lose it, or something along those lines. And kind of, I think that's how it's going to play out. You kind of hit the nail on the head. I think it's going to be a very tentative game. Yeah, I think he's hit the nail on the head. A derby, they can't afford to lose. I think it's going to be a very unpretty game of football, to be honest. Neither side, in the grand scheme of things, near identical records as well, to be honest. You both conceded around 32 goals and both scored about 45 goals, roughly, so to speak. So I'd kind of go 1-1, to be honest. That's kind of how I see it going.
If you offered me that now, I'm not going to lie, I'd take it. 4 points from the games we'd have, I would take. Considering the run we've got after that, we've got Rotherham, we've got Northampton, we've got a lot of teams near the bottom. So I do expect us to go on a little bit of a run once this game's out of the way. But I am going to back us to win, because I know we played a 10-minute winner, because I'm a fan number 1. And Tuesday we near enough rested our entire team. Like Kelman played 10 minutes, Markandy played 10 minutes, Adji's back fit, he played 60, Galbraith come off after 60, so did Donnelly. So key players have been sort of rested, and I think we'll win 2-1. Moving on to Stockport versus Blackpool. Blackpool I've tipped to be one of them teams that make the really late charge, a bit like Lincoln did last year, in terms of you just come up from absolutely nowhere, especially with Blackpool's home form, because they draw so many. There's fine margins in their game that are costing them like 2 points, but they obviously got an impressive fight back a couple of games ago. Stockport have had 6 wins in their last 10, sitting in 4th, but they did lose their last away match at Cambridge United, and they've got the joint 4th best home form on points per game. Blackpool, as we know, are the joints draw specialists. They're unbeaten in their last 4 away. They've won 7, drawn 4, and lost 6 with their away form. But if you compare that to their home form, where they've only got 3 wins, but they've drawn 10 at home, and I still believe they do have a firm shot of the playoffs with the form Niall Ennis is in, personally.
Blackpool's issue is this game's away from home, if I'm honest, and Stockport are relatively good at home, I think. They're also a good footballing side that I think will finish 4th this season, looking at the table now. Probably not what I predicted at the start of the year, which means that I'm going to be in trouble when we do our season review. But yeah, I think Blackpool, I don't want to say they're in trouble for this. I think quoting them as the ones to make a last push, I don't think there'll be such a thing really this year. I'd go for a Stockport 2-0 win here, really.
Okay, I've gone for a 2-2 draw. I think Blackpool will continue their drawing streak and pick up another point. Moving on to Crawley versus Cambridge, a must-win game, I think it's fair to say, for both teams. Yeah. Mainly because Crawley need the points as much as Cambridge, but Cambridge need them more. Crawley are now within touching distance. They're 5 points from safe after a couple of impressive results. But Neil Harris is back at Cambridge for the second time after he has managed to turn his managerial career upside down, near enough. Went from Millwall to somewhere, then ended up at Gillingham, and then ended up getting promoted to Cambridge, then getting promoted again to Millwall, and now back down at Cambridge. So he'll end up back at Gillingham at some point next season. Getting his first win back in charge. They're 3 points further back than Crawley, so they're 8 points from safety. I think Crawley are quite good at home as well. Cambridge have only won 1 away game all season. So I'm going to back Crawley to win 3-1.
There's kind of a which team goes to fight on after this game feel about it to me. If Cambridge win it, kind of, I feel like they've got to, when you're in the situation where one of you has got to sacrifice yourself to give the other the best chance of survival. If Cambridge win here, it doesn't help either side, because to me, Cambridge have already, I don't think there are 4 worse teams than them this season. But Crawley, again, I don't think there's 4 worse teams in them, but because of the situation they're in, it's only 3 points difference, but I think they're in a better position to survive if given the opportunity. But if Cambridge win, it doesn't help either side. To be honest, they're both on 29. If Burton win, which I predicted them to do, then the gap will still be 5 points. So, yeah, I kind of back a draw, if I'm honest. I think 1-1 is kind of what I've got in my mind, because on the one side, you've got this Cambridge United managerial bounce that we don't know how long that will last. But Crawley, I think, are the better side. So, yeah, I'll go 1-1.
Okay. Moving on to another two teams who are in desperate need of points, which we didn't think we'd be saying about one of the teams at the start of the season. Bristol Rovers versus Rotherham. Funnily enough, Rotherham have actually only won 2 away games all season, which is a rather alarming statistic. They're separated by just 3 points as well, but Bristol Rovers' home form is the best in the bottom half of League One. If anything's going to keep Bristol Rovers up, it's going to be their home form. I think that's pretty obvious, but I was very surprised to read that Rotherham had only won 2 away games all season. Their fans have seemingly turned on Steve Evans, which doesn't overly surprise me because he seems a very unlikable person. He comes across as a very unlikable person when things don't go his way.
Is there a klaxon for that? Is there a klaxon for Steve Evans hate alarm or something like that? Because I feel like
but I'm sure we can get one.
That's a bingo card ticker if you've ever had one for this podcast.
I would love to go back through all of his losses this season and have a bingo card. I think we should make one for next year if he is managing in League One.
Get the merch out. Get the merch.
Yes. Obviously, with Paul Warne waiting in the wings near enough for that job, I think that's pretty obvious that he will get that job if Evans leaves. I think if they lose to Bristol Rovers this weekend, they've got Orient on Tuesday, and they lose that as well, then we could well be looking at Rotherham looking to the managerial market. But I think in this game, Bristol Rovers will be a 1-1 draw.
I think it's only a 1-goal game, to be honest. Picking both sides to score here is probably a bit optimistic, if I'm honest. Which is why I'd kind of go Bristol Rovers to get a 1-0 win. And then next week, we'll be having the conversation about whether Rotherham are in trouble. I mean, if we're having the conversation that Mansfield are in trouble, Rotherham in trouble. They've got identical records over the last 5 games. They're on exactly the same points. They've only got 4 goals different, like in terms of goal difference. So we very well might be having the conversation that Rotherham are in trouble.
We need another klaxon. Ryan, behind the scenes, please get on it. Thank you. Moving on to Barnsley versus Lincoln City. Callum?
Yeah.
Take it away.
Lincoln. It's just not happening for them, is it at all? That Mansfield Town win has really papered over some cracks, if I'm honest. Not a big fan of it at all. All the players seem dead, playing players in positions that they're clearly not rooted to. I think Rico Hackett's played left wing back 5 times in the past month. Well, the past 5 times he's played left wing back, he's made a mistake. He's always got a mistake in that position, and teams know that. You know, his header was what gave Burton the last minute winner last time out. And I'm sure that I seem to remember there was a mistake earlier this season as well when he played left wing back. It's just not happening for him. And he's one of Lincoln's best played players, if I remember correctly. I know Lincoln's director of football has been given an interview, which I've not had a chance to listen whilst I've been doing this podcast. But that will be very, very interesting to listen to, seeing there's a lot of the criticism. It's not leveled at him. It is leveled at him, but it's not just leveled at him. It's Skabala. There's a lot of blame going around all over the place. There's a feeling of inevitability when we talk about Lincoln City that it's not going to be fun. Last year, we were talking of this inevitability of Lincoln will get a win. Now it's when will Lincoln go from winning to drawing. The fan base just how we kind of describe it is when you walk down the street and people who you would talk to about Lincoln City, who would normally be positive about it, they're starting to be negative about it. And that's the worry, is your average Joe fan who doesn't go off on one on social media, doesn't say random stuff, when they're the ones that are starting to get a bit miffed, you're in a bit of trouble. And this game, I fear, is the final straw. Last year we went to Barnsley and we absolutely hammered them. I think it was 5-1 in the end. Jack Moylan had an absolute field day. He's out injured for the rest of the season, so that's not going to happen. You've got no Lincoln spark at the minute. Even the signing of James Collins, that flame has been doused out very, very quickly. He's been all right, but no goals recently. It's just very, very and in essence that sums it up. It's very, very nothing. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure with Lincoln, and I fear a 3-4-0 Barnsley. I'm genuine. I'd go 4-0 Barnsley.
I think that's the biggest scoreline you've given this season.
I purely say that with and maybe that's heart over head, but I worry like that. That's the feeling as a Lincoln fan, is there's no sort of you don't like I'm not when I go and work a match day. Normally I'm excited to see what Lincoln do, and I know when I see that team sheet, the first question going through my head is, what the is he thinking? That's normally my thought process now, is what formation is this?
Yeah,
it's changing all the time.
Yeah, I remember when you played us.
I'd go 4-0. You don't know, do you, with Lincoln? No. I barely touched on Barnsley. Back-to-back wins for them. They're coming back into form, aren't they?
Again.
Which, of course, would be the case. It's whether this form wave that they're on will last until the end of the season. If it does, I'd back them for playoffs. But if it doesn't, then they'll finish 9th or 10th.
No, I think they'll beat you 2-1. But their home form's too poor. 4 wins all season at home is the worst in the league. Joint second worst in the league. Only Burton and Blackpool have won less home games. They've both won 3 at home. Shrewsbury and Cambridge are both on 5 at home. So 3 games less to cover. You've got Exeter City, who also are in dire form with 1 win in 10. Another team that's looking over their shoulder rather rapidly, versus a Northampton side who have been pretty good in the last 5 games. 3 wins. Kevin Nolan working his magic. Maybe we should come up with a nickname for Kevin Nolan next, because I call David Moyes the Messiah, because he's heavily criticised by West Ham fans for no reason at all. So we need like a nickname for Kevin Nolan. He's working some magic down at Sixfields.
Yeah, he's doing quite well, isn't he? And he's dragged Northampton from a side that I said would be 5 points away to a side that, what if I do my maths correctly? Oh wait, they're 4 points away now. So never mind. I'll
there goes that point.
there goes that point. But no, in all seriousness though, they're doing all right. I think Northampton, they've got those points, and like I say, they'll get points enough that'll see them survive. I think Exeter City, for all the talkers that has been on of Mansfield and how bad of form that seems to have been the talk of the league, right? Is how bad Mansfield have been.
Yeah.
Exeter City have been just as bad, to be honest.
Yeah, got a bit under the radar, haven't they?
But it's gone really under the radar how bad they are in the past few weeks. 3 points from 3 points from the drop zone.
Mm-hmm.
I reckon it'll be closer than that come Saturday evening. Come 5 p.m. I bet Northampton here. I think they'll get a 3-0 win, because Burton Albion will win. So I think Blackpool will win. So I think they'll keep that buffer. Thanks for your company, Simon. Yes, please do tune back for the rest of it. All your support is appreciated. But Northampton will get 3 points purely because Burton will get 3 points, and Northampton always stay 5 points above the drop zone.
Even though they're 4 at the moment.
Yeah. But my point applies.
Yes, I've gone for a 1-1 draw in this game. Moving on to one of the penultimate game now. You've got Stevenage versus Huddersfield. A game that I'm not overly excited by, to be honest. You've got Huddersfield, who I've said many times I don't think they did good enough work in the transfer market, in both markets, to overhaul their squad. They've still got that losing culture. I think in that squad, they go on a little run. Like they've done it 2 or 3 times now, where they don't win in 4 or 5, scrape a draw, then win a couple, then go on another little run, which is why they are now in the position they're in, 2 points clear of 7th place, and now looking over their shoulder. And Stevenage got their first win in 5 last time out. They have actually had 8 wins at home this season. They're very, very strong at home, but only the 9 away goals for Stevenage is their downfall. I don't really like watching Stevenage, to be honest. I don't really
I think
have much to say.
I
don't think
think
many
the
people
phrase
do.
"I like watching Stevenage" probably is something that's not been said many times, and I'd argue
I
even by
just
their own fans. But it's again, I wouldn't even say that's a bad thing. You've got
no,
illegal on safety, and that's all you can ask for, I suppose.
yeah,
It's a bit like Lincoln, I suppose, but a bit more stable than Lincoln. You don't have the budget to compete at a championship level, but to go down to League Two would be a huge issue. So stability is all you can ask for. Um, for this game, I'd go 1-0 1-0 Huddersfield. Sorry.
okay.
Again, it's just that quality. Okay, the form is a bit poor, but yeah, I reckon they'll do it.
I was
Just purely on
I
quality.
was toying on a 1-1 draw, but I've gone for a 2-1 to Stevenage just because I think they're quite good at home. Huddersfield are quite strong away with 8 wins away from home, but I just think with the form Huddersfield are currently on and the physicality of Stevenage, I think they'll probably score a set piece. Good old Piergiani will get his head on something, probably the opponent. Moving on to the final game is Wigan versus Reading. Obviously, Reading we've discussed, and we really hope this ownership pulls through. They are having an excellent season, just 3 points off the playoffs. Their home form is the second best, I believe, maybe the third best in the league, just behind Wrexham and Birmingham, versus a Wigan side who I don't really have much to say on, except they're relatively comfortable in mid-table on 39 points, 7 points clear of the drop. I think they have enough to stay up. They've got quite one of the youngest squads in the league. Have Wigan. I just think they're there in mid-table this season. I think they'll be a lot better next year, but I think they're just kind of there this season.
The thing is with Wigan, we said Wigan would be there this season, last season. So I worry they're in that kind of cyclical. Oh, we'll develop young players and they'll be ready next year. Oh, whoops, we've sold a couple of them in January. Let's try again. So I don't know. I think I'll go with in this game. About Reading to go 1-0. I think I'd probably say.
Reading 1-0. I've actually gone for 0-0. Reading don't score too many away from home, only 18. And Wigan don't score many at all. They've scored 15 at home all season. So that's all the predictions. If you've got any predictions, stick them in the comment section now, and we'll quickly have a look at a few to end this episode off. So we've got a lot of predictions here from Simon. We've got 2-0 Peterborough, 2-2 Stevenage Huddersfield, 3-2 Stockport County, Wigan to beat Reading. We've got Birmingham to beat Wycombe, Wrexham to draw with Bolton, Barnsley to beat Lincoln, Bristol Rovers to beat Rotherham, Burton to draw with Mansfield, Crawley to beat Cambridge, Exeter to beat Northampton, and Orient Charlton to draw. We've got an Orient fan in here. Love to see that. We've got another comment from a Birmingham fan about players. So should we have got relegated and signed old cloggers like Rotherham? Our CEO said we want a championship ready squad and we will spend big in the summer to be a top 10. To be fair, they're probably not going to need to buy very much when they go up.
No, but my mouth is being shut on this, so I will not speak.
No, I think you've got Jay Stansford on a 7-year contract. He's championship worthy. The only players that I don't think, off the top of my head, and there's probably a few I'm going to miss off, I don't think Alfie May is championship quality. Other than that, I've not watched a lot of Birmingham. I'm not going to pretend I do. Keshi Anderson is someone that strikes me as like a top League One player, not championship work player. Kieran Dow, I expect to go there permanently. He's a championship midfielder. The two obviously got Paik and Iwata, they're championship players. Clara, Cochrane, Allsop, Laird, they're all championship players. So that their squad should be at least mid-table next year. And and to be honest, they've had they had crap owners before, didn't they? I've said this a couple of times. Lee Clark sprinting down the touchline when Paul Caddis scored an equaliser at Bolton sticks in my memory. So,
for the sake of this league, all I'll say is I wish they spent the money 12 months down the line from when they did, because it would have made this year a lot more fun. But fair play.
Yeah, they're walking the league, and Chris Davis and his recruitment staff deserve a lot of credit. We've said that. As much as we like to wind you Birmingham fans up, we do think you are the best club in this league, and they have recruited very well. So if nobody's got any more comments before we'll wrap things up, and before we do that, Callum, your parting words for Birmingham City fans this week.
I hope you enjoy some records for winning the league when you spent a lot of money.
Yeah, we had.
You got the clap playing. There you go.
So, thank you everyone for tuning in. If you are new, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. So we're going to be doing a couple more of these live preview episodes in the coming weeks. We think they work quite well, and we're quite interested to get more feedback from you. So if you have any feedback, let us know in the comment section. We do like to hear your views. Make sure you subscribe and follow us on Twitter, which is in the top right hand corner of your screen. And thank you everyone for tuning in. Look after yourselves and goodbye.